Okay. I'm just gonna change the link. Right, Lou, can you see? Are we up and running? Oh, it's a different link. Yeah, I'll send it to you with it's on the Instagram. In fact, if you could just check the Instagram to make sure that it's working. Right. Great. Okay. Right. Okay, so well let's sort of start and so hello everyone and welcome to the launch of Giant Insect World. And this is the virtual space that we're using to host events and uh, raise awareness of insects. And so what we're going to do for the next 40 minutes or so is have a wander around and look at the space. Um, Lulu here, say hi, Lulu, is going to ask questions. And we also have Marika and Beth here, say hi. Um, and so we're going to wander around, look at the insects, and generally have a chat about why we might want to have Giant Insect World and and what we're going to do with it. Okay, but we might as well introduce ourselves while we're here, just so we know. So let's gather around the orange moth. Welcome, gather around the orange moth. There we go, and I'll zoom out a little bit so that we can see each other. There we go. Marika's in the sky. You can take it off. You can get yourself out of the sky if you press the gear button um, and you deselect the plane mode. Then that won't get you into the sky. And we have a new person who's joined us. Who's this? Ursula. Hi, Ursula. We're just starting off by introducing ourselves to each other as we tour around the different insects, looking at them and chatting. If you so we're gathering around the orange moth right now, Ursula. You can either press your arrow keys or press WSAD. Yes. Um, right. Okay. So I'll introduce myself first. Hi everyone. I'm Jessica Simons. I run Visioning Lab, doing R&D projects using emerging technologies to tackle social and environmental issues. Lulu? Great, thanks. Marika? Great, thank you. Beth? Brilliant. Thank you, Ursula. Great, thank you. Okay, so let's look at the orange moth for a bit and think about. I'm just going to walk up to the sign so that we can read it. And Lou, if you've got your first question. Yeah, so the meadow came about. So if you look around you, this meadow is of Chorlton Water Park. I don't know if you recognize the space, people who know Chorlton. Um, and It's a 360 photo that was taken a long time ago, actually, now for a Chorlton Arts Festival um, by uh, uh, an organisation that I was working with at the time, who was looking at developing a business as taking 360 photos. Um, and I made a space using that on a different platform called Mozilla Hubs, which was a series of free 3D virtual environments. Now, people might know Mozilla as the people who make the browser, the Safari browser. They went on, they had this vision, which was instead of creating websites, people would create 3D spaces like this. So they set up a free service for to create spaces, and lots of people went nuts and created a whole variety of different virtual environments. Um, but then they couldn't make it pay, so they ended it. And so this is a second iteration on a different platform called Frame VR, and the 360 photo was taken by a company called Cyro, and broken up. So when you look around, you can see it's actually no longer just, before it was just a 360 photo of a big circle, and now it's sort of, it's got more of a kind of game feel. Like Cyro do Roblox environments, so they have a lot of experience of creating spaces in sort of game settings. So it was really interesting to create a kind of more of a game environment. And then the it Yes, exactly. And the insects come from a German company called organization, actually, a research organization called Dinada, and their scans of real insects. So, like looking at this moth here, if you sort of browse around the moth, you can see um, the actually imperfections of it if you sort of look at it. So this German institute, they had insects that were from a Victorian collection, and they created this really sort of um, complicated machine, a sort of world-leading machine, to bring in these very, very fragile insects, and scan them to create a 3D version of them. And the reason why it looks a bit sort of game like, if you like, is because in order to, so the original model is a massive file, and then in order to bring in a 3D model of an insect into an environment like this where it's loading over the internet, then the objects need to be reduced in the number of polygons, which are triangles. So if you think about a 3D structure is made up of a mesh of thousands of triangles, then when they reduce the insect uh, file size, they just take out triangles. So looking around you, all these insects are all real scans that they've then been optimized for downloading. Yeah, so that's go on. Yeah, so that I was asked by it was Tatton Hall were doing a augmented, well, they were doing a stand for the RHS, the Royal Horticultural Society annual show, um, and I was doing researches with Marika. Actually, Marika, you remember, um, and they wanted to. So I was doing some research with Marika. We were looking at how to connect the creative digital economy to different sets of discrete groups across Cheshire, East Cheshire. Um, and we were looking particularly at creative technologies. Um, and then I left the university to set up a company and to make augmented reality experiences. And because I had these relationships in Cheshire with Tatton Hall, and they were putting on this stand at the RHS Garden Show, and the theme was butterflies, and that's how it started. I made an AR experience of butterflies, and then I did it again for Manchester Museum, um, and then I met Dimitri, who was head of the insect department at Manchester Museum, um, and that's really because Manchester Museum has the most amazing collection of really beautiful insects. And when you go into the room, they've got like this big room. It's like you're stepping into the past, and you sort of become this sort of Victorian, uh, curious person surrounded by all these sort of dark hardwood uh, furniture with the drawers, and you open any of the drawers, and then there's just like these incredible beautiful insects sitting inside, and the room kind of smells of mothballs, and it's just like it just was really exciting. Yeah, and there's so many of them, and they're so different. Yeah. Because it was for the Chiltern Arts Festival during lockdown. We They couldn't put on their festivals, so I used this Mozilla Hubs environment to create a space. This 360 photo was the setting of a festival field, and we put in a stage, um, and we invited uh, artists and musicians around Chorlton for the festival. This is during lockdown, to all make a film of themselves performing. And then we played their films on the stage in this environment, um, and um, and we had a festival. It was online where people came and kind of watched these films of people performing, and there was something really kind of beautiful about it, that again got me interested in how you could use these virtual spaces. So then I was doing these augmented reality experiences using the insects, um, for the museum, for Tatton Hall. And I thought, what if I take the models of the insects that I'm using for this AR experience and I put them into this virtual world? So I just tried it. I dropped in an insect, and when I dropped it in, I made it big. And that's really where it all started. I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I organized what I called a Halloween shindig, which is I had another 360 photo of an allotment, and I put lots of big these big insects into an allotment photo, and I imagined that the insects were having a party, and that invited a bunch of people to come along and be surrounded by these giant insects while they were having a party. Under the surface, yes. What's happening is that there's a big convergence is occurring. So the gaming world, the robotics world, if you think about robots, um, drones, um, automated vehicles, um, all sorts of different ways, digital twins, which is where you create digital versions of buildings and cities, places. All of them have an underlying technology, which is 3D environments like this. And so what's happening is that they all have very mature technologies and mature um, people working in those fields. And so there's going to be a moment where people just click into using these kinds of 3D virtual spaces all the time. So it's really bubbling up under the surface. And the thing that people are getting confused about is that putting on a VR headset is only one way of accessing these 3D worlds. Um, and you can take any 3D world and just put on a VR headset and look at it. So it's just another form of display, like a screen, a browser, whatever. And the phone, looking through your phone camera at a digital asset that materializes in front of you, that's a conceptual leap that a lot of people need to make, as what am I actually looking at when I'm looking through my phone and I'm seeing this like 3D asset through the camera, which looks like it's in the room. But actually, the tech that's used to create that is the same as all the others. The only thing that's different, like looking at any one of these insects, is that you just drop that insect into the camera, and then you can view the rest of the world with that insect in it, but the tech is the same. Mm. And the access. So if let's all walk just to so we can have a change of scene. Let's all gather inside the next beetle, the golden ground beetle. You can actually walk inside it. That would be quite amusing. There, Lulu's just disappeared into it. This is what's so incredible. For some reason, I'm really high. So oh, there we are. There we are. Yeah. So you have to change your perspective so that you're looking. Oh, there we go. Oh, I was thinking about having meetings inside insects, so breakout rooms inside these insect spaces, um, so you can kind of appreciate how beautiful they are. And I'm quite interested in biomimicry, which is used talked about a lot in the architecture field now, for how you can take the form of the natural world and mimic it in the built environment, in the physical world. Ah, Marika, you talk about biomimicry. So tell us a bit about what you say at the science festival. Mm, mm, yeah. Mm, yes, definitely. I mean, if you think about it from a sort of biodegradable perspective, it's like, is that our ultimate goal? Is to This is the idea of living lightly on the planet, is that if the materials that we're using are materials that are designed to break down in the way that natural materials do, eh, over the period of time that we want it to, because obviously we don't want a building to start collapsing underneath us. But yeah, yeah, um, maybe not wax, but yeah. So maybe, if we fast forward, I don't know, 500 years or something, all the materials that humans use to construct their world are made, you know, drawn on natural resources. I mean, obviously everything in the world is natural, isn't it? But concrete and maybe plastic has come out of parts of the world where they were buried away. Well, if we go out of here again and we go back into the space, then what I'd really like to do is tour with this. So I'm talking to different people like Beth. So maybe Beth, you want to say what you're doing with your project? Yeah, yeah, that's perfect. That like summarizes exactly what I've been thinking about, is this idea of providing a menu of different kinds of insect related activities for programmers like Beth, Marika, and Ursula, who want to bring them into the projects that they're working on or the themes that they're working with. Um, and then not just do this locally, but do it internationally as well. So tour, because insects are, of course, all over the world. So I'm really curious about how to do things differently in different places. Yeah, But us, yeah. So Ursula has been doing really interesting things in Peel Park. Ursula, do you want to say a bit about your projects? Mm. Yeah, and I think it's definitely changed my attitude towards insects just these past few months when I've been working at them. I think there's something about just getting used to them being around, you know, and not minding. Uh, So, we've got quite a lot of fruit flies at the moment in the house because they like to hatch in bananas. And so if we have bananas, then we get lots of fruit flies, and then they take ages to go away again, even after you've eaten the bananas. But but where before I would get kind of annoyed and try and kill them, now I'm just like, oh, hello, hello, insect. Like I got some apples off the tree, um, and I was like, and windfall apples, and I was sort of cutting them up, and I had avoided doing it because I was like, oh, I could see lots of worms and so going into the apples, and I was like, oh, that's going to be so gross. And so but I'm thinking I've got to cook them because otherwise they're just lying there on the ground, and it's embarrassing to like, ha- have apples that grow and then not eat them. So I started cutting them up, and sure enough, these like woodlouse came out, was climbing over my chopping board. But rather than be disgusted and upset by it, I'm like, hello, little woodlouse. And then I just threw it in the garden, and it was no big deal. They eat the aphids. Yes, and the other thing it's doing is it's one of the things that I find sort of really fascinating is the there's all sorts of social complexity involved in insects as well because of these so-called intruder species, which have come from elsewhere. So the harlequin ladybird, for example, um, was introduced to the UK because to try and control aphid populations. So it was eating the aphids. Um, but it then started eating indigenous ladybirds. So it's become a villain in the piece. And but it sort of raises broader questions around how what happens with these species that is actually quite quite a touchy subject, you know. It's the same with the hornet. You know, you might have heard talk of the Asian hornet, um, which people are saying, oh, it's this invasive species. Feel free to kill it, you know. And that rhetoric is used very sort of freely when talking about insects, which is something maybe people need to think more carefully about, you know. So environments like this, you know, I mean, the I work with or I talk to, in fact, the guys who made this space about creating a game environment. And there are a number of game environments involving insects already, but guess what? You have to kill them. There are friendly insects that you don't kill, but the narrative of the game is to kill insects that are trying to eat you. Um, and so it's one of the challenges is thinking of experiences which foster a sense of concern and care about insects rather than um, wanting to kill them. But at the same time, also being aware that there are aspects of insects which are annoying, much like humans. Like just yeah, and so and I'm really sensitive to actually parents and how parents talk to children about insects and how young that happens, and how easily the children develop a fear of these insects. And I did it myself just the other day without intending to at all. I was like trying to we came across this ant's nest. I was with my sister and her daughter, and we came across this ant nest. So her daughter's 6, and I was like, "Oh, great, an opportunity to engage my niece on some insects. Brilliant." So I give her my phone and I say, "Let's start filming the insects as they're like running about." And I was like encouraging her to look really closely at the ants because the ants have this thing. If you ever see an ant's nest, just stop and look at them for a while because they greet each other. If you watch an ant walking around an ant nest, it passes each time it passes an ant, they put their kind of heads together. They're saying something. You know what they're saying. I don't know. Is it hello or something else? Or in fact, we can turn and look at the ant. We've got an ant over here. This one. This one here is an orange ant. So they kind of butt heads with each other, and so I'm like, oh, look at these ants. And so she gets the phone out and she starts filming, but the she stands right on top of the ants, and they start climbing over her sandals. And I was like, and there were some of them were quite big, and I know that big ants can bite, right? So I said, oh, watch out, they might bite. So then she like moves away from the ants, and now she's developed a fear. And every time she saw an ant for the rest of the walk, she was like, "Oh no, the ant! It might bite me." Yeah, yeah. That's actually my primary interest. Um, is how if we think about how you have um at the moment humans think of themselves as being on top of everyone else rather than being integrated among the natural world. And so I want to encourage change of perspective where we see ourselves as very much part of an ecosystem. Um, and I'm interested in what are the steps that we take to encourage people into that point of view. And insects act as a really good um, intermediary to support that change of awareness because they're they are a bit uncomfortable, you know, that they're not necessarily that pretty. They're, as I was saying, they're a bit annoying. They get in the way. They can bite. So it's like if we can come to terms with living alongside creatures that are inconvenient to us, then that has wider implications about living alongside lots of people who are inconvenient to us in some way. And I find that really interesting. Yeah. Mm, yeah. And the other thing is that when you see how intricately they're constructed, um, and how beautiful that construction is actually, then the urge to kill it diminishes because it's a bit like a sort of beautiful glass figurine, that's if you imagine an insect as this like carefully constructed piece of art, um, then you're less inclined, I think, to try and kill it, because you're imagining this beautiful form being destroyed, and you don't want to do that. I mean, I think pesticides. I just want to welcome Mark here. We have Hi Mark. Where um well we're just let me just do should we do a quick round of intros just to say hi to Mark? Oh, Beth, Ursula, and Marika, and Mark. I'm thinking actually. Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's funny because I think there's like a sort of perfect project that we could develop just between the people who are here. Because we've got programmers and artists and community engagement people, and you know some kind of yeah. Um, but in reply to your question, Lulu, about how to tackle people's disgust, if you like, of insects, or how to manage insect populations, one of the things that I'm quite interested in is whether or not a more ecologically balanced natural environment, the insects wouldn't be annoying, you know? Yeah, yeah. So that was something that somebody said to me, which I really liked, was they said that when you see an insect, it's going somewhere, like it has a purpose. They're not just hanging around, idly, not really doing anything. They're on a mission. They do. Yes, yes. So on the 27th of September at Manchester Museum, we are showing a film um, that was made as a collaboration with the Manchester Nepal Society, and the museum. So it came about through a set of slightly unexpected encounters where I was doing a project in Nepal and talked to Manchester University. Uh, it's actually around disaster recovery, and talked to a lecturer there called Nimesh, who then introduced me to the Manchester uh, Nepali Society, who were having a Nepal Day at the museum. So, as part of Nepal Day, we're showing a film which was and it uses photography from Nepal by a photographer called Bikas Raunia, and it's showing footage of a UK meadow, and a soundscape by Neil Spencer Bruce, who's a sound artist and filmmaker, and macro photography of insects by Francis Pryor, who does really beautiful photographs, close-up photographs of insects. And the proposition of the film is about 15 minutes, and it's going to be in the immersive space in the South Asian Gallery. And the proposition of the film is that it's called Same and Different. And there are two biogeographic realms that meet in Nepal. So one of them stretches all the way from Nepal to the UK, and it's called the Palearctic realm. And then the realm that stretches down into Asia is called the Indo-Malayan realm. And so there's insects that we have in common with Nepal, so that's the same bit. And there's insects which are different because it's in the Indo-Malayan realm. And so what we're doing is we're showing these macro photography of different insects um, alongside pictures of Nepal and pictures of the UK, and encouraging people to think about um, the idea that there could be things that the insects we have across Nepal are the same, and things which are different. And obviously, there's an obvious sort of analogy there as well. So that's the 27th of September. And then that film will then be available both as it's three film, because it's a immersive screen, it's three screens facing each other. So we can tour with that. That then becomes something that's available on the kind of menu of Giant Insect World experiences. But also, one of the things I want to do is uh, do the same thing with other communities. So, we made one which was a sort of exploration of what we have between Nepal and the UK, insects relating to that. If I go to another community with a different background, we could do some other kind of exploration, but produce a film that can then get shown. And also, another thing we've got coming up, hopefully, with Beth, with the National Trust. Is Beth, go and say what you've got in your mind about what we might do together. Great. And we might as well go around the others. Let's ask Ursula, how do you think we could work together? Great. Thank you. Marika. Mm, yeah. Yeah. What one of the things, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm quite interested in AI actually, because there's insects in their form, and then there's insects in their practice. Um, and we talked about biomimicry earlier and sort of copying how insects look and move, but there's also something about insect behavior in volume, and whether or not uh, the the movement, say ants, and how they navigate their way around. I'm hearing about modeling, sort of computer system modeling to some extent, taking inspiration from how insects move around in their spaces. So that could be something, a sort of quite techie analysis. Yeah. And Mark, tell us, what do you think we could do together? Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Yeah, sounds great. Okay, so I think that's probably enough now. What do you think? Do you have any more burning questions, Lulu, or anyone, or shall we stop the live stream? Yeah, great. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you all for coming. It's been really great. To sort of engage with you, show you the space, but also I think for me just seeing people in this space and practicing its use and thinking about how it could be used has been a really helpful. So thank you for coming along and sharing your thoughts, and feel free to have a wander around. Just check them out, and the space is here all the time, so you can always bring other people to come and have a look. The URL's the same. Um, Mark and I had this funny encounter this morning where I was in the space and he popped in to have a look, and it was just sort of, it was actually just quite nice to be somewhere where someone just pops up and says hello. Yeah, exactly. Instead of the water cooler, you have the virtual park. Okay. All right.